please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
The tax plan, because that seems to be what the market has been following on a day-by-day basis. Obviously, this is relative volatility. Yesterday, big update. Today, a down day off the lows, but the market started to turn down after comments from Kevin Brady, House Ways and Means Committee, saying that, look, the 401k idea is on the table, not what the president had tweeted earlier this week. And I think that shows you a little bit about how difficult it is to find the pay-fors with this. What's happening with tax reform right now?
Well, the president does not want to interfere with people's retirement savings, period. He also wants tax cuts, especially middle-class tax cuts and tax cuts for businesses. Those are his big objectives, and that's what's important to achieve.
Is it possible to do that? Because it's easy to talk about lowering rates. It's a lot more complicated to try and find ways to pay for it. As we're learning, when you hear about the state and local tax deductions, when you hear about mortgage interest, when you hear about things like the 401k package, what do we take back to make sure that we can pay for rates?
Well, the real way to pay for the tax cuts is by stimulating the economy and generating more tax revenue. If we can get the economy up 1% a year more than where it otherwise would have been, that generates $2.5 trillion over 10 years. So the real debate is over the technicalities. How much growth will you really get from the tax cut?
You're talking about dynamic scoring, and while most people will say yes, there is some certain amount of growth to the economy that will come from tax cuts, right? The real question is where the rubber hits the road, how much you can give into that. You have people like Senator Bob Corker who have said he will not vote for a tax bill that adds a dime to the deficit, and that's where you get into some of these real issues for the pay-fors. Do you have enough Republican votes with dynamic scoring to be able to pull this off?
Well, I think we do, and I think we got a very good advance hint of that with the House going along with the budget proposal. The extreme right wing in the House had planned 12 amendments to the budget. At the president's urging, they decided not to pursue them, just take it the way it was. That's a very powerful thing because it saves us about 10 days of debate, and more importantly, the reason they would do that is to get to the tax bill. So I'm very optimistic that this will be much better received than the health care program.
You do think that the votes are there and it could potentially happen by the end of the year?
I think the votes will be there. There'll be little compromises along the way. There's some discussion by some of the members about having some portion of state and local taxes deductible, maybe for the lower income brackets. There is some discussion about adding a fourth bracket. There'll be bells and whistles that'll change, but I believe directionally the president will get what he's asking for.
The bill, we have not seen the specifics yet. We expect to get a bill. Do you think that will happen next week?
It's hard to put an exact time denomination on it because Congress is so process-driven rather than results-driven. But it's certainly going to be very soon, and if it's not next week, it'll be very quickly thereafter.
Secretary Ross, one of the huge issues that we've heard about from businesses are concerns about what will happen to trade pacts, specifically NAFTA. There's been a lot of tough talk from the administration. Where do the NAFTA talks stand at this point, and do you expect to see it renewed?
Well, where they literally stand is they're recessed for another couple of weeks, but substantively, we've now gotten through most of the fairly easy issues. We're now into the harder issues. And I think what's unfortunate is people trying to prejudge what may be the outcomes. What they ought to do, let's get a deal if we can get one. If they don't like the deal, let's talk about that. But I think it's a little silly to hallucinate about this may happen, that may happen. They don't have any idea whether we're going to have a deal or not.
Are you optimistic about the idea that we'd have a deal?
I think there will be a proposal that we can take to the president. Whether it will be a proposal that we'll recommend and whether it'll be a proposal that he will accept are a different story. But we're trying to do a difficult thing. We're asking two countries to give up some privileges that they have enjoyed for 22 years. And we're not in a position to offer anything in return. So that's a tough sell. And I don't know that we'll get every single thing we want. Question is, will we get enough to make it worthwhile?
Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Becky. Good to be on.
Good to see you again, Secretary Ross. And Bill, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Becky, thank you very much. Always good to see Secretary Ross as well. Apple denying a report that it told suppliers to boost production of the new iPhone 10 by reducing the accuracy of that new facial recognition technology that everybody's been buzzing about.
But Apple is saying this report is not true, telling CNBC in a statement. Bloomberg's claim that Apple has reduced the accuracy spec for Face ID is completely false, and we expect Face ID to be the new gold standard for facial authentication. This report got a lot of attention, of course, because it speaks to those rumors and reports that have been flying fast and furious about the iPhone 10 now for weeks, specifically questions about whether the initial supply of that device is going to be constrained even more so than usual. One closely followed analyst at KGI says that Apple is going to ship just around 3 million units before launch and only around 30 million for the holiday quarter. The new iPhone 10 is available for pre-order starting this Friday. Bill, back to you.
All right, Josh, thank you very much. So, Alphabet, Amazon, Intel, Microsoft, all of them set to report earnings tomorrow around this time after the bell. We have a preview coming up.
The big NASDAQ stocks have been a little bit out of favor. They've traded a little bit soft. And the question is it going to be a change of tone that lasts for investor preferences? Obviously, they worked most of the year, but now we're talking about industrials. We're talking about reflation trades. And so now we'll see if maybe these numbers can draw people back.
As Arthur Cashin said, this is a critical week, and tomorrow is the critical day of the critical week because of these important reports.
Absolutely.
We'll see what it does.
Still watching that bond market, though. See if there's change of character.
Rates keep going there. Thanks, Mike. We'll see you tomorrow. Closing bell. It's done. Fast Money begins right now.